Welcome to this video, and my name is Amy. Okay, so for today's video, we will try to dive more deeply into the previous topic, Cold War. Let's get started with a question. What was an event that you think really important during that period? I guess each of us will have our own answers. Just let me know under the comments below and I will try to cover all of them. Why am I asking this question? Yes, because I'm gonna talk about a major event that affected the whole period of Cold War. For whom didn't watch my previous video, I'll explain a bit about Cold War first. Cold War was a long period of tension between the United States, Soviet Union, and their allies that lasted for decades. The United States followed democracy and anti-communism, whereas the opposite was true for Soviet Union. Like the name Cold War, they never actually fought, but competed through other things such as nuclear weapons, space technologies, and proxy wars. So what was the event? Ta-da! Yes, the Korean War. Okay, explain briefly about it. This is a war that lasted for 3 years. From 1950 to 1953, it involved North Korea, South Korea, Soviet Union, the United States, China, and the UN Army, which made of 16 nations. In 1945, Korea was set free from Japanese control. However, Soviet Union occupied the north of Korea and the US controlled the south. This country was divided into halves at 38th parallel in 1948, but both of them did not accept the border. On 25th of June 1950, North Korea attacked the South successfully and captured the capital of Seoul. Since that day, North and South began to fight. UN troops were sent and recaptured Seoul. They also once captured Pyongyang. As a result, China sent their troops to help North Korea and they captured Seoul once again, but later pushed back to the 38th parallel. The armistice was signed on the 38th parallel on the 27th of July 1953. From that day, Korea was divided into North and South until now. So why was this event can be considered as a major point of the Cold War? First of all, the Korean War represented an important shift in the US Cold War policy, which they decided to involve in Korea. This might because they have seen the threat of China when it turned into communism, as well as watching Eastern Europe fall under the Iron Curtain. This decision was a significant strategy to stop the spread of communism. Secondly, at this time, Korea was essential to the U.S. interest. So if the U.S. want to save their face and remain their profits, they must say that they fought for the idea of strongly against communism. This later set a pattern and made them to join every wars that involved communism in the Cold War period to justify their reason. Thirdly, before, the US didn't have any reason to increase their spend on military. However, the Korean War was a good reason for them to rapidly increase military expenditure, so that laying the foundations for the so-called military-industrial complex that existed throughout the Cold War to threaten their enemies. Fourthly, at first, the US tried to keep the war on a small scale and end it as quickly as possible. However, China involved and it grew bigger that sometimes it seemed like there would be a World War III coming up. In addition, the US couldn't use atomic bomb because it was just 5 years after the Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed. It was a hard issue for them, and this problem also continued throughout the Cold War. For example, indirectly made them lose the Vietnam War. Finally, it demonstrated a new term of the new post-World War II era. Before, there was no definition of proxy war. The US and USSR just competed by weapons and technologies. After this event, many wars had broken out that were similar to this one. The countries never declared war with each other, yet through a third country, and this can still be seen until now. To sum up, the Korean War was a civil proxy war between ideology roots of communism and capitalism. If capitalism saw the other wanting to control a nation, they would get involved, and reverse. This was actually what happened between USSR, China, and the US. The relationship between USSR and China was pretty normal, because they had the same idea of ruling the country and needed others to help. But eventually, China's leader, Mao Zedong, decided to break the alliance with the Soviet Union. For the US, they are afraid there would be a domino effect that can have an adverse impact on their roots to remain as a superpower, so they tried to stop all of the ideological expansion of communism. In addition, this was the reason why they supported Taiwan. However, later, the US used the changing relation between China and the Soviet Union to take advantages. They replaced Taiwan by China in 1971. In conclusion, the overall aspects in this period were ideological differences drove nations apart after World War II. Both sides wanted their values and economic and political system to prevail. Both wanted a sphere of influence. Both agreed that capitalism and communism could not coexist as the other system was inherently evil. Both took a hard line towards the other. Thank you for listening, and this is the end of the video. Bye!